Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Welcome to the Latinx panel of Fan Expo. I'm so excited to introduce all of these incredible creators. My name is Kyra Navarrete. I am a proud Latina, journalist and host of the Relatable Nerds podcast. Growing up in a Latino household had the most impactful influence on me every step of my journey. And I'm pretty sure everyone's going to agree here with me today. Our cultures and where we came from had the most impact on us as creators. Um, and yeah, I'm gonna go right into introducing everybody. To my right, we have Kayden Phoenix, creator of A La Brava, the first Latina superhero team. Next to Kayden, we have Jarrett Melendez, writer and co-creator of Chef's Kiss, a queer kitchen romance comic book series. And next to Jarrett, we have Shadia Amin, comic book artist and illustrator of the upcoming series, Shiny Misfits. And last but not least, we have Tone Rodriguez at the end there, illustrator of so many comics and television media. You may have heard of some of them: Simpsons, Futurama, and Stray Dogs. Alrighty. All right, I guess we're just gonna do some brief questions for each person, and you kind of can go down the line, give us your answers individually. Chime in if you don't want to specifically chime in on a question. That's totally cool as well. I guess if you want to go down the line, everybody give like a little brief introduction of who you are, what's your medium, what kind of art you do. Yeah, whoever wants to start, go right ahead.
All right, I'll go first. My name's Kayden Phoenix. I have Latina superhero graphic novels, so I live in the graphic novel world. I'm also a TV. I write for features and TV as well. So I'm actually a writer director in entertainment industry, but I crossed over to comic media as well. I also have Latina Princesses, so that's my new series that's coming out today. This week, and it just premiered, and then all next year, the rest of the series of the princesses come out.
Awesome.
I have a bunch of books that are coming out in the next bunch of years. I have a couple of cookbooks that I'm working on. One is licensed, one is my own. The one that's my own is going to be completely comic book style. Um, so fully illustrated recipes, but in a comic, panel to panel style. Um, I am working on a graphic memoir. I finished the script. Be working with a Brazilian artist named Eduardo Medeiros. Um, yeah, I just so all the books, all
A
the
lot
comic
going on,
books.
huh?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's exciting though.
yeah. I also work in food media as an editor for Condé Nast. So I work for Bon Appetit and Epicurious, developing recipes, reporting on different food stuff, food trends, food history. Um, yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Hi, my name is Shadia. I am a Colombian comic artist. Some of the work of the IPs that I have worked on include Agretsuko, The Amazing World of Gumball, and currently Spider Ham. And as I said before, I'm working on a comic novel called Shiny Misfits, which is about a girl with cerebral palsy trying to become famous. And I'm also doing a little side gig with King's Comics, doing an olive oil spin off from the original Popeye comics. So it went from Thimble Theater to Popeye, and now we're trying to go back to the Thimble Theater kind of olive-centric stories that they used to be. So it's been really exciting. Couple of years for me recently, and then I have other stuff that I cannot talk about, but it's coming out in the next couple of years. So I'm excited. I'm like, soon I'll be sharing.
Is it working now? No, it's still not. I'll just come over here.
Always
I'll-
pass you.
It's okay. It's good. It's fine. I was testing it earlier, but then everyone started talking. I didn't want to bang on it while they were talking in fear that it was working. Hi, I'm Tone Rodriguez, and I've been drawing comic books for a long time. It's weird. I just recently we're working on Stray Dogs. We're working on the follow-up to Stray Dogs now, but I've worked on The Simpsons and Futurama and Radioactive Man and the Treehouse of Horrors, as well as working on television shows like Dexter and The Office, if anybody's a fan. Um, and just the funny thing is, from time to time, I just forget some things, and people will remind me, like the Office thing. They'll say something, I'll be like, I didn't work on an Office comic book. Get out of here. And I was like, oh shoot, I did. But yeah, I mean, that's what I do. I draw comic books. I literally draw anything that people ask me to do. If they're willing to have us do it, we do it. So, um, can't think of anything else. Maybe stuff will come up while we talk. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to it.
Yeah, well, that'll
that
be
is
great.
a long list, right? The
Yeah, yeah.
Office too. I wasn't aware of that. That's
Oh,
incredible.
okay.
That's
Well,
so
yeah.
awesome.
And I'm sure I've forgotten a dozen other things. It's weird. It's
Yeah.
real dopey.
All right, let's get into it. How did anybody who wants to go chime in? It doesn't have to be down the line. Anybody who wants to go right ahead, you can. How did your childhood environment influence your art? Did your specific Latino heritage and background have an impact on everything you do? Was there maybe somebody in your life that had an influence with art? Or yeah, if you guys want to chime in on that.
My dad is the Latino one of my parents, and he was monstrously abusive to us, and full of all of the worst traits of Latino men. So all of the machismo and the making fun of anything remotely feminine, including his gay son. Yes, a lot of my work features like found family. That's like a pretty major theme in a lot of my work. And you can read all about everything that my dad did to us in my graphic memoir that comes out in a few years.
Absolutely.
So for me, my Latino culture influenced some of my stories. I do have a short superhero story called The Haze, and it's about a Latina superhero. And in a similar vein, it's about standing up to your parents. Latino, especially towards women, Latino parents tend to be very like, you have to be a certain way. Like I had my first tattoo at 24 years old, and when I tell you, my mom screamed into high heaven, thinking nobody will date you. You ruin your poor body, and I'm like, it's fine. I promise you, it's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
It is fine. She's married now.
Yeah.
Suck it, Mom.
Yeah.
Take that.
But for me, I was very like Colombian people, and just I think Latino culture in general are very aggressively weeabooish. We really love animes. We love Dragon Ball like crazy, especially
Yeah.
Colombians just go hard on Dragon Ball. So just a lot of anime was very influenced, but I do realize that why am I not making more brown characters in my story once I got into college? And definitely that's just what I like doing, is just having all of my main characters be Latino, if I can make it be, especially more like unexpected Latino characters, like chubby Latina characters. I don't see them as often, or that they're unafraid. Especially that, like, just the body standards, or just a certain like standards of like, no, this is how things are done in the family. It's something that I like breaking off, like at least confronting your family, or just being like not what society in Latino culture expects you to be. Like I've been told, like I'm 30 now, but I've been told that at 24, oh, you're 24? Isn't it too late? You should be having kids, married and kids now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's not late for me. And they're like, it is late for you. You need to be having children now. And I'm like, no.
I feel like a lot of Latino culture, there are a lot of expectations presented to you even before you have an idea of what you want to do with yourself. And the stress of it is extremely heavy, but a lot of those characters do, I imagine when you create them, it does come from that place where you're trying to break away from those stereotypes. You're always constantly trying to move forward, but it does get very difficult, especially with parental figures, or just even, grandma, grandpa, like just them having this set expectation, especially with children and women in general, just like by a certain age. So I totally understand that.
Yeah.
Your turn.
I've been waiting to do that for years. It's like, just think it's funny.
Perfect timing.
You're gonna find this out really quick. I'm just here to amuse myself, and people sometimes laugh, and most of the time they just look and gawk. I was really lucky. My parents, when they got married and they decided they wanted to, raise us, they found a nice little home for us in North Hollywood, California, and this was the crazy thing. We were the only Mexicans in the neighborhood. And so we were like the neighborhood's little devils when we were kids. And so the thing is, we weren't even bad kids. We were just those Mexican kids down the street. And so we kind of like had this really bizarre like relationship with our neighborhood, because we were kids and we weren't horrible, but we had certain families down the street that maybe wouldn't let us play with them or something. It was really odd. But the thing was, my folks were super supportive. My father and my mother both allowed me to buy comic books and never made it seem like it was a weird thing. They also seemed to be very supportive of like me, drawing or, and I would draw on anything. Like at one point I remember just drawing like on brown paper bags because it was all I had. Like I didn't even have regular paper. The idea that kids can draw on an iPad now was just so foreign to me. So it didn't matter what kind of medium I would draw, I would do it. And my folks were very supportive of it, but we were kind of poor, even though we grew up in an okay neighborhood. But my father never ever told me that it was something I couldn't do, but he was definitely more concerned about, well, what are you going to do now that school is over? And, how are you going to do this? And so I did what everyone else did. I just started working a regular job until I kind of realized, like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do my own thing. And it's really funny because now I'm the boss, but I realized I'm a horrible boss. I can't time manage anything. I don't want to get up. The alarm goes off. But the thing is I've kind of learned a lot just in the last couple of years because, like I said, it's like now I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm the responsible one. I'm the one who's bringing the income in, and that's the Latino thing. It's like I talk to my wife about it all the time, and she goes, "You don't have to do this." Like, no, I have to do this. My parents don't talk like that. I just do it now. It's like a joke, like, oh, and people are like, "I can't believe he's doing that. What a jerk." But yeah, they were super awesome. My mom especially. It's like, and we grew up with very little, but man, let me tell you, when you have nothing, you stretch that stuff out. It's amazing. I remember at one point when I did get paper to draw on, I would draw on both sides of it. It's I'd be like, where did that other drawing go? Oh, there it is.
Right.
So yeah, it definitely went its way. So it was cool. My folks were awesome.
That's amazing. I'm glad they're really supportive. Was there, going off of that, I guess, because you kind of knew your specific moment once you had that regular job, you were like, okay, like, this is not what I want to do. I don't want to be a 9-to-5er. I want to pursue my passions.
But the thing is, we love money. Like, I mean, I'm not like somebody who's like, I love money. But we love money because that's how we buy everything. If I want a shirt, if I want clothes, if I want a book, if I want a toy, I have to have money. Well, how do I earn that money? Well, I have a job. And keep in mind, anybody who has a regular job, 9 to 5, and on Friday the check's waiting for you, I envy all of you. Oh my God, that must just feel powerful. Like you get your check and you're like, oh, I got to pay bills. I pay bills every month.
It goes right away.
It's like my wife will tell me, it's like, we got to pay the phone bill. It's like, didn't we just pay that a month ago? Because I handle nothing. Like, and I don't see the money. Like even at the show, it comes in on the card and she gets it, and I don't even want to see it. But I do. I'm not even kidding. And the sense is, I will put in a 60-hour week, and sometimes I have nothing to show for it. And it's not because I wasn't working all week. I was busting my hump. But because of the way the creative part of this works, sometimes you don't get paid until the job is done. Mm-hmm. And, just like any other kind of business, I prefer to not get paid up front. And I get that all the time. People will ask me, well, you want me to send the money now? I was like, no. Because if you send the money now, I'm an artist. Like I'm Latino, but I'm still an artist. Like I'm going to lose incentive to finish that job immediately as soon as the money shows up. Right. Because now I got your money. Now it's not even a horrible thing. But the thing is that, okay, well I got the money, but I got to do something else. So I don't take money up front. I try to like put it off and put it off and put it off. So
yeah, it's like an incentive. It makes you work a little bit harder. You're still striving to get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know you mentioned that you grew in a predominantly white neighborhood. Yeah. I'm not sure everybody else's experience, but we did talk about this briefly before, just kind of having to prove yourself in those environments constantly, like how extensive, can you speak Spanish? Oh, you look a little bit more, like just the different levels of insecurities that come along with being in environments where you just constantly, people are questioning you, like, oh, you're Puerto Rican, but you can't speak Spanish, or like you don't, like, do you guys have any specific instances you remember growing up or trying to find your place in your own culture and proving yourself?
trying to be as short as possible, because again, I can talk for hours about this. Again, I told you, we grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood,
Right.
but, 2 blocks down, were the apartments and the Latinos and whatever. And of course, we wanted to play with all the kids, so we're playing. And so we didn't fit in with the Latino kids or the Mexican kids, because again, we grew up in Los Angeles, San Fernando Valley. So they were Mexican. And then every so often we meet somebody else and they were like El Salvadorian or Guatemalan. And then what I found out is that Latinos are not racists. We're elitists. So if you work your way down and you're like a Mexican born in the United States, you're like somehow at the top of your food game, right? But keep in mind, I'm going to point out how this is totally backwards thinking later. But and then you have a Mexican from Mexico, and now they live in the States. Well, you're better than them because I was born here. But then it works down. Guatemala, El Salvador,
levels.
Cuba, Chile, And keep in mind, but it works the other way around when you want to travel the world and you want to go down there, and all of a sudden I go to Mexico, tie my hands behind my back. I don't want to go. Not because I don't want to go to Mexico. It's because I can't speak Spanish. And the second they realize that I'm a Latino and I can't speak Spanish, I feel like I've just let somebody down. And not my mom or dad, because my mom and dad didn't teach me Spanish. My mom and dad were shamed as children to speak Spanish in school. My mother was shamed for eating, I'm going to say it right, tortillas. We call them tortillas in my house. I'm not even kidding. My dad would do it. Let's get some tortillas. My dad was a Latino, but I'm telling you, he would do this. Because in El Paso, where she was from, they would laugh at her for eating tortillas. So her mother, my grandmother, would buy a loaf of bread just for her so she could have a bologna sandwich to fit in with all those, Americans in El Paso. And so my dad did the same thing. He was shamed for speaking Spanish in school. And so when they had us, they did everything they could to not have us feel the kind of shame that they dealt with. So they never talked about it. They never spoke Spanish to us, which means we never learned it. But this is the problem. Now they had this secret language that they could go ahead and talk about what our problems were in front of us. And we had no idea what they were doing. We're just like, oh, there they go again. They're talking about, and they said, Leo, Leo, you're in trouble. And so, but the thing was, this is just as ESL is making its way into school. So it's like 1979, 1980. If we had just a little bit of Spanish in us at that point, I'm telling you, the doors just open if you're bilingual, especially in Los Angeles. But I tried to learn Spanish as an in high school. It is the worst thing in the world to be Rodriguez and get a D in Spanish.
Yeah.
Buddy.
So at that point, I was just like, maybe eventually I'll pick it up. It still hasn't happened. I'm 54 years old. It still hasn't happened.
One day. Don't give up hope. I have faith in you. I think it'll come
just
along
Duolingo.
naturally.
You'll
Start
get
with
there, kiddo.
tortillas, No more tortillas, tortillas, Little steps, baby steps. Did anyone else want to chime in on your personal experience with
I
that?
have had an interesting experience because instead of being American born, I pretty much I'm here because of college and I got married. Somehow I was stubborn enough because my family's like, oh, art, you want to make a career out of art. Why don't you work in the family company? And somehow I was so stubborn about keep on drawing that everybody else managed maybe you should let her go to art school. So I did manage to get into art school here. And then after that, I ended up finding my husband. But it's so funny how even my own family treats me now that I'm married like an American white guy because they're like, oh my God, you won. I'm like, I won what? I just married a guy that happened to be American. You know how much money I would be making if my dollars were transferred to Colombian pesos? I'd be doing great.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so it's been interesting. So the thing about Colombia and a lot of South American countries that they don't say is that there's a huge Arab diaspora, and especially in Colombia. So most popular example is Shakira. She's from my hometown, but she's also Lebanese Colombian, like me. So our grandparents migrated. We're not related, but just her grandparents separate, and then my grandparents separate, migrated, great grandparents, sorry. So I am Lebanese from my dad's side. I am Palestinian from my mom's side. And in the U.S. immediately people is like, oh my God, you're exotic. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm very common. Like you'd be amazed. Like you see last names like Mana, Amin, Tafur, Hasir, Abu Chaibe. They're all like Arab names, but they're very common in Colombia. So it's so weird that I'm treated like I'm such an exotic alien, or like I even had somebody say like, yeah, I'm from Colombia, and they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, really? And I'm like,
Surprise.
oh my God, yes, Colombia is a real country. I know you saw
It
Encanto,
exists.
but oh my God, I swear it's a real country.
It's a real place.
Oh my God.
People actually live there and come from there.
Yeah,
So.
I had, and unfortunately, this had also, eventually noticed like a lot of the friendships that I ended up terminating ended up being white people who get a little bit racy with me, and I'm like, a lot of it has come either to resentment because they're like, oh, you're just getting opportunities because you're brown. That's the big one. That it's clearly that they think that I get my opportunities because I'm a brown woman or somehow I slept my way into comics, which gross to think. And this is from people who were my friends.
Yeah.
Or they think that they are in the clear to say cocaine jokes or say like, oh my God, stop it, your accent is so thick, and stuff like that. And I'm just like, you expired jar of mayonnaise. I hate you so much. Leave me
Almost
alone.
like, thankfully you said that, so now I can know you don't have to be in my life anymore. Because, like,
Yeah.
who knows how hidden that.
It's definitely like I see. My last big cutout of friends was definitely a white girl group, and the moment I got a gig, they turned on me. But whenever between the white girls were getting gigs, they were like, "Yes, queen, you
Right.
deserve it," and I'm just like, okay, fine, I guess. Not weird at all.
Yeah, no. Do you want to chime in, Jenna? All right. I guess going off that question, going into, as all creators, going into this white-dominated industry and culture, what kind of other adversities did you face as, once you decided you wanted to be creator and artist, were there any specific instances where you were just like, kind of taken out of body and you're like, wow, this is like kind of wild that I have to be here and fight for who I am and what I believe in just because of my culture?
Weirdly enough, actually, for me, is the fact that I keep getting asked to do mostly Arab projects, and I'm never really included in Latino projects. And it's honestly fine. Like, I've been to Lebanon and everything, and that is part of my heritage. I'm not gonna deny it. But like, I am aggressively like emphasize how Colombian I am, but solely because I don't have a very like sorry to say stereotypical Latino name, I am not as included on those spaces
Right.
as the rest of my Latino friends are, or my Latino peers. And I think like, and I'm like, you're like, and that's a little bit unfair. Like, please count me in the Latino spaces. I'm actually like, born and raised in a Latino country. Why am I getting excluded from these opportunities?
Right. Did you want to chime in on that at all, Kayden? As just being like a Latina woman and just kind of breaking the barriers and kind of getting to that point of having to, it's crazy that you have to prove yourself, but just to realize that, oh man, this is going to be like way harder than somebody else, would be doing the same thing I am.
I was thinking about it, and I was just like, I self-publish, and so I am the creator and owner of everything, so no one can tell me no, which is really nice. Like, I have all Latina artists purposely just to prove a point that Latina artists exist, right? Because who's going to tell me no? Nobody. It's my money, and I would say I'm in charge of it all, so I can literally do anything I want. At the cons, so far, I'm fairly new. I have 3 years in this comic industry with my books. I have 7 titles out as of right now, all graphic novels. But no one's ever really told me anything negative, which is really nice. I think that everyone says you came in at the right time, and they told me that in regards to directing as well, being a Latina and female director. And so it's kind of that. It's like, I think people are aware of the need of it and the diversity of it. I get a lot of comp tables, which is really nice and definitely helps in regards to the travels and everything. But it's definitely opening up. In regards to the people, like the people passing by at the tables, with the main difference, obviously there's a big pandemic in between, but the main difference I've seen is that now the parents are saying okay to the little boys if they're because they're all female, right? They're Latina superheroes and then Latina princess. If a boy stopped at the very beginning, if a boy stopped and looked at the books, the parent would be like, "No, that's for girls," and they'd push them forward to the next table. And obviously, no one ever says that to a girl in regards to Latina superheroes. But now it's okay. Like recently, like this year, for whatever reason, they'll say, "Hey, do you want a book?" Right? Which is a really cool, like, at least that's a little change in regards to gender normity. And so that's a really cool, not that it's an adversity towards me, but it's just like, well, here's equality. And so I look forward to that and I like that aspect of it.
We've broken so many barriers thus far, pushing the boundaries of having Latino representation. And in the media, like recently, we've seen Teno Huerta as Namor and Black Panther, which was incredible to watch. And even with Star Wars, we have Diego Luna at the forefront of Andor, Cassian Andor, Pedro Pascal as the Mandalorian. There's so many more Latinos popping up in pop culture, media, at the forefront of it. What do you guys think we need to do to keep this continuing?
Definitely expand the more Latino people, like more, like I want more Colombians, I want more Brazilians, I want more Venezuelans. So like I want to get specific with everybody's cultures and nationalities, because I think like my big gripe now that we're seeing more specific, like how aggressively like Maya and like Namor was, and I need that, and how Encanto, how aggressively Colombian Encanto was, and I need that. I need more aggressive specifications rather than weird on a specific amalgamations. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, the thing you're talking about there is how narrow-minded most Americans are. And again, no disrespect to any of the Americans in the room. Thank you. But the thing is, one of the first things I did early on, when I started drawing comic books, you start getting invitations to travel, to go to shows like this, because they have shows just like this in Spain and Mexico, and all of a sudden, for some reason, they wanted me to go to Germany. I was working on The Simpsons, and Germany apparently is a huge Simpsons place, and so I went out there, and I remember being with another comic book artist, and oddly enough, this was right after 9/11. So 9/11 has happened, and then all of a sudden, travel is frozen, and then we're at a huge show in Germany, but what ends up happening is all of the Americans drop out. And I'm going to give you a heads up, I was ready to drop out too. I didn't want to get on a plane. I was like, I don't want to go. It's like I'm a big guy, but I was even bigger. And so traveling was a real nightmare. So I had planned to just fall out and go, I'm not going to go. But because everyone else canceled, all of a sudden I'm like, it's like there's only me and this other guy. So this show, right after 9/11, I was like, I can't even get out of this. I have to go. So I go to the show, and I'm there with this other, I'm going to just say it. The guy was an idiot. I won't tell you who he was, but he was an idiot. No, I can't. Maybe outside I'll tell you. But he was a moron. And so we were hanging out there, and he said something to me that just hit me in like a ton of bricks, because it was like literally the best way of explaining how narrow-minded Americans were. Or are. And again, not to anybody in the room specifically, but it's because we don't travel outside the United States. We just don't. I mean, you want to go someplace, let's go to Disney World. But hey, let's go to Disneyland. That's what we do.
Let's go to the safe places, the safe spaces where we can exist and not feel uncomfortable.
And you don't even have to cross the border because the states are so huge, but everywhere else they travel. So anyway, I'm at this show, and this other artist said, hey, mate, stop that guy. And I'm like, I turn around, I'm like, what guy? And he goes, the African American guy right there. And my head just turned to him, and I said, what? And he goes, the African American guy right there. And I said, you realize we're not in America, right? That's a black dude. It's like, and the guy was, proper British English accent and everything, And he said, can you just say the black guy? He's like, oh, I can't say a black guy because he was a white dude. And you can say black. He's black. It's like, let me go stop the black guy. But it was so weird because I had no problem saying it, which is funny because every so often you'll have that situation where you feel like if you say, oh, hey, what that black guy over there, hey, stop him real quick. And somebody will look at you like, what did you just call him? Well, look, sometimes that's just what it is. And again, this is the other thing. I'm old. I still say, like, I use the word retarded, like, not on a daily basis, but like on a weekly basis. But I don't use it to someone specific. I don't see some kid who's differently abled and I go, look at that, you know. I do it to like my car when it won't start. You fucking retard, what's the matter with you? Because I'm old. It's just one of those things that my brain is just working. And then, of course, if I say it, I look around, I go, who heard me say that? Because I don't want anybody to sit there and think I'm talking to some kid, you know, with the helmet on or something. See, that was a joke. But what I'm saying is sometimes these words just slip out and they don't mean what other people think they are. Like I said, if he had been in the United States and we were at a show in Baltimore and he said the African American guy, I would have known exactly who he was talking about. But it was just weird that, again, being not nomadic in any way, we don't spend any time with other cultures. And again, this was right after 9/11, and I'm in Germany and I saw all these Indian people and I'm like, where do they all come from? I'm supposed to be in Germany. Well, it's because they left their native land and this is where they are now. And so now when we see these movies, I see these old comic book artist guys, and I won't mention any of their names either. They get upset because Flash Thompson is now an Asian or Indian. And I'm like, why does that bother you? Well, they're just changing my comic books. Flash Gordon's a white guy. Your comic books are fine. Your comic books have never changed. If you have a problem with them changing a character from a white guy to a Latino or an Asian or an Indian, or making a male character a girl, don't worry about your comic books. Your comic books are fine because they're in a box. They're over there in the corner. You go ahead and go back to that anytime you want. They're not making comic books for you because you're the guy who's going to go see the movie anyway because you love Spider-Man or whoever it is. They make these movies for everyone else who might not actually see it. And people want to see themselves represented in movies. And thank God Hollywood is part of this now, because once upon a time, if they were shooting a movie with a Chinese story, they wouldn't hire Chinese actors. I mean, how many cowboy movies have we seen where the Indians are played by, you know, white guys with red makeup on, or some Latinos? So again, representation is everything. I mean, some people just talked about how heavy-handed it is. I swear to God, I never think for 1 second that, oh, thank God that they did this, or thank God I just want to go see a movie. And then if you have that discussion afterwards, awesome, great, whatever. But like I said, they never mess up your comic books because they're always in a box. If you don't want Flash Thompson to be, you know, Asian or again, Indian, he's fine. He's a white guy in your box. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think that's like a huge part of it, though. It's just the inherent kind of racism people are born with, especially with African American. Like, it's nice you're trying to be very like aware of what you're saying, but at the same time, it kind of just ends up becoming obvious that you're kind of walking on eggshells, which is again better than completely being, you know, the person who isn't.
It's awareness and context. Because sometimes you'll have somebody repeat something that they heard you say. It's like, wait a minute, out of context, this sounds totally wrong. And it's not meant that way. But anyway, I don't want to monopolize. I'm sorry, I can talk all day. I'll stop.
That was incredible insight, especially flying after 9/11. I can't imagine as, you know, a brown-skinned person. It's just, whoo, you're a target. Going off that, I guess with Latino representation coming up more in the media, what would you guys specifically each hope for to see for Latinos and representation? What are some things that you would like to see in comic books, movies, TV shows, stories?
More diversity, but actually in like the very marginalized things. So why can't we have a dark-skinned Latino, right, or Latina, or Latina? Why can't we have non-binary, right? Why can't we have all the very, very marginalized people? And it could just be more than one. Why can't we have someone in like a handicap chair, or right? You know, why can't we? Like, we just have our usuals, right? But like the safe choices, but you know, someone can way more, right? Because it's reflective of our society. And so little things make a big difference, right? Storytelling reflects democracy. And so that's why I write superheroes, because I am from East LA, I'm a Chicana, and everyone thought I was a Chola, and I'm literally the opposite of a Chola. Like, I don't even have tattoos for reasons. I don't wear my hoop earrings for that reason, because I'm so stereotyped. And I'm really pink cut, I'm literally the opposite. But I was just like, okay, everyone thinks I'm a Chola, you say that as a negative. My Chola and Cholo friends are super cool, honestly, because they are. because they're all East LA. So I made a superhero that is a chola, and she will save you because she is a superhero, right? And so it's just flip the script. That's what we call it, is flip the script. Okay. Um,
I wanted to add to what Kayden was saying because it's just kind of, I think a big issue is that I see that even the own Latino community have been sabotaging themselves in the way, like when adding more non-binary Latino characters, and then even the most progressive comics people I know that are Latino, specifically Colombians, they're like, that is weird. I'm like, why? It's just Americanizing things. I'm like, are you sure about that? Like, you'd be amazed how normal it is. It's just you're just so used to your own little bubble of things that I'm just like, I guarantee you that even if it's one person, one non-binary Latino person sees themselves in the comics, that made it worth it, you know. So it's important to diversify. That it's not just one specific Latino look. Like you said, there's dark-skinned Latinos, there are disabled Latinos, there are non-binary Latinos, and I want to see more of that in the Latino comics community. It's not just one little row of the same brown people, tone of brown, and I'm like, please, come on.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. Did anyone else want to chime in on that?
And there's more stories outside of East LA. So you think of all the TV shows, besides that we're all gangsters. But you think of TV shows, like
Dealers
there's
of things.
Vida, there's Gentified, that's still Boyle Heights. That's where I'm from. And so literally, like, there's more Latinos outside, right? We have South LA, we have North Hollywood, we literally have anywhere, honestly, right, within the whole United States, that people can see and be like, okay, this is another community, and they live totally different than my East LA people that we live, you know? So.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, last question before we open it up to anybody who wants to ask any audience questions. We have a microphone up there. Do you have any advice to any upcoming Latino artists?
Be aggressive, live stubborn like me. It's the only way you can defeat your parents.
What was the question again? No, I mean, I was like, here's the mic. It's like, I really don't need it. So.
By the way, disclaimer, I love my parents.
Yeah.
But I have to basically soften them up to the idea of like, I can make comics, I can get
You
tattoos.
can make a living, you can do this.
It's gonna be fine. And now they're like, now that I got a regular job, and now they're like, but what about your comics? They're like, I'll be fine.
Right.
I'm a strong little boy.
I got
It's okay.
this.
Yeah, what was the question again? I'm sorry.
Any advice you have for any upcoming Latino artists
Who want to get in comic books?
Comic books, media, anything you would recommend
okay.
from your realm.
Because when you just say comic books, I'm saying don't do it. Whatever you do, don't do it. It's the worst thing. It's the worst job you'll ever love. And I really do mean that because I love what I do. I mean, I enjoy what I do. I don't necessarily wake up to an alarm. I get up, I do what I got to do. And like I said, I'm the boss, so I manage my own time. But really, don't limit yourself to just comic books. You know, I had an amazing teacher at one point. His name was Mike Vosberg. Mike Vosberg was one of those original Marvel guys before like Ron Lim and stuff. And Ron Lim was referred to as like Mr. Marvel for a while because he did everything and he could do the stuff fast and whatever. Mike Vosberg was one of these guys that would get a phone call on Thursday afternoon and they're, hey, Mike, you got time to do a book? And he'd be like, yeah. And he'd be, when do you need it by? We need it Monday. And sure enough, on Monday, he'd drop off the pages for an entire comic book. And so his career is full of this whole thing where people aren't really, and I don't want to say this in the worst way in case Mike ever sees this, because I love Mike and I love his work. But people, they don't think of him like they think of like Jim Lee or they think of like Todd McFarlane or they think like John Byrne or whatnot. But people don't take into consideration that he was making these comic books with the most ridiculous of like deadlines. And he still delivered them, and he was the guy that would do this so that he could feed his family and take care. So, like, I feel like I'm that guy. Not that I'm as good as Mike in any way, but I do what I do. I feel pretty confident about it, and if somebody offers you another job, and that's what he taught me, it's not just comic books. It's production, it's design, it's illustration, it's cartooning. It's like don't put yourself in a box and say, I'm a comic book artist. Because if that's what you do, that's all you're going to get. You know, if you present yourself as, well, I can do this and I can do this. Again, somebody called me one day to do the comic book for The Office. Well, it was a comic book, But I had never done any TV work before that, and all of a sudden the phone rings. They ask me to do it. They tell me when they need it by. I said it's impossible, and they're like, come on down, we'll tolerate it. But the thing is, don't say no unless you have done it once or twice and realize you can't do it. Because Hollywood in particular is full of people who have no idea how to do what they're going to do, but they figure a way of doing it while they're on the job. And so that's the best way of handling that. Don't put yourself in a box. Just do everything, and don't just say you're one thing. We're everything. We can do. If some point, if I need to be a car driver or and get in a car behind the wheel and get some, if that's going to be my job, then that's what I can do. I know it has nothing to do with comic books, but yeah, it's just work.
Take every opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything's a new opportunity, even if you're not, specifically familiar with that
I
topic.
love how you
might learn
can
something.
cut through my bullshit. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
All right. Did we have a question out there?
Yes. Oh, wow, that's a very hot mic. Thank you, Chuck.
He's ready.
First of all, get it for Kyra, everyone. She killed it on this panel. That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being really vulnerable and talking about this in a capacity that might make people that don't look like me very comfortable. That's a good thing. You mentioned a diaspora. There's a lot of diasporas occurring right now on this planet, unfortunately, Ukraine being one of them. Armenia is still having its genocide committed upon them. The heroes, the individuals that you all create, how do you address the generations that are going to be greatly affected by all diasporas going forward for the next, 2 decades?
You do the best you can, and then when you know better, you do better, right? Like, I know the Latina diaspora, and so I have 5 superheroes, and they're all different heritages. Within 5, obviously, I did not cover everybody, because it's a huge diaspora, but you do the best you can, right? American Latinas, I think, get less representation in film and TV than non-American Latinas, right? If you think of our directors, you think of our 3 male directors, right? They're all from Mexico, and they do great work, but name an American Latina director or Latino director besides Robert Rodriguez, because he's from Texas. You can't, right? Name a Latina director. You literally can't, and that's the sad part. I can name 2, Patricia Riga and Patricia Cardosa. They're both from Mexico, which is great, but you cannot name an American Latina. And it's stuff like that. So find something you care about and work for it. Know everything you can about it, of course, and then see what you can do about it. Like in regards to Ukraine, I don't know much. I know from obviously news, but I'm not Ukrainian. I have nothing there that pulls my heart, right? But for Latinos, especially American Latinas, I'm 3rd generation, I will fight for you left and right, because that's what I know. And so in that sense, I will fight for what I know because I can do it better, because it's part of me, and I care that much more about it.
For me, pretty much what I learned is just a lot of it is, because sometimes, diaspora usually tends to happen just due to a balancing circumstance in the country of origin. So it's a lot of it is the trauma of what happened to them just goes to you and the next generations and definitely break them. And it's interesting, I actually had that talk with my mom when I'm ready to have children. And she even told me, you need to break generational traumas. And I already told her, I'm starting by this ones. And she's like, but really? And I'm like, yes, because those were the ones that affected me the most. And then she's like, okay, break them then. Yeah, so it's definitely finding those patterns. Because I know, well, like I said before, that Latino people definitely have, you need to be a certain way. But sadly, I feel like that way of being is because I've noticed is because just for lack of a better way, we are agringándonos to how Americans do things. So even now, I'm seeing Colombians celebrating Thanksgiving, and I'm like, but why? Why are we celebrating Thanksgiving? That's not even a holiday of ours, and they're still celebrating it. So I'm just like,
That's colonized. Decolonize your mind.
It's basically it's like our culture is being weirdly colonized and adapting to American lifestyle because it's how we think we're gonna fit in or make it our way. to be in, and I'm just like, but why? Like, we're already like, why don't we take care of what we have now? You know, instead of trying to be like the other, because we're never in the end, we're never gonna be like the other. Like, I can have a citizenship and everything, but in the end of the day, I'm still gonna be an immigrant. I'm still gonna be told by other people that I probably married for a visa, which is not the case, or I've been told that I'm stealing a job even though I work from home. So stuff like that. In the end, no matter how American I try to be, I'm still just gonna be treated as another. So why put the effort to try to merge myself to a culture that is never gonna fully accept me? You know, I'm just gonna be myself and be happy while I'm at it.
Do you want to? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, guys. From a storytelling standpoint, whether it's in the art, the writing, or any stage in the process, have you heard feedback, or do you ever worry that when you represent your culture, your background, or a culture similar within the Latin American community, do you ever worry that someone might say you're not representing me correctly,
I
or or like, do you have the right to write about, say, like in your indigenous background when you're not from that direct culture?
I get that all the time. Literally all the time, because I have five, right? Like, I have a Dominican, I have a Chicana, obviously. I have a Tejana, I'm not Texan. I have a Cubana, Boricua, I'm not any of those either. And I have a Mexican. And so that one's actually from Mexico, and that's my grandma's. And so a lot of the time, there's like you're saying, like, we're crabs or lobsters in a bucket, right? We're colonized to be like, no, you're going up, let me bring you down back, back to our level. And so you can't hold it against them. Like, obviously, does it get mad? Yeah, a little bit. But you can't hold it against them. Like, I had my superheroes, someone did a post for me, and like all these Latina people were just commenting like positive, and then the ones like they're here and there, you have the old school people that are like, that doesn't represent me, I don't look like her. And I was like, I don't know you, stranger on the internet. Of course it does not look like you, But it's like, do you really think I have to represent you, one person, in our billion people here? And it's stuff like that. Like, I'm not representing her in that sense. No, obviously not physically. I don't know who the heck she is. And then she kept going, and she's just like, make them fatter. And I was just like, these are superheroes, for one. I do have, it's a superhero genre. It's a superhero generalization. If you think of, like, name a fat superhero, you can't.
Faith.
Well, the thing is,
But you get what I'm saying. Look
Yeah.
at all the superheroes you look at.
yeah,
Like, freaking Namor is like half naked the whole time through. No one's telling him say he should be fat, right? No, they're not. So it's the point of what a superhero looks. You're above a human, right? You're super. So what is super is more perfection. And I'm not saying anything else. There should not be a fat person. I'm just saying, why are you blaming me and attacking me? No one's saying that to Stan Lee.
but that's what they do. I mean, they find a target, and that's what they do. The thing is, when you're creating anything, whether it's a book or anything, and you want to give something a voice or you want to create it, you can't spend 1 second thinking who you're gonna make happy and or upset about it. You just do what you want to do, because the thing is, those people are still gonna find you. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how hard you work to make every idiot happy. You're gonna upset a couple idiots. And just remember that when they finally do come after you online, on social media, on your Facebook, or in your face at a show, that they are still just idiots. There's nothing wrong with somebody having a different opinion. It's how they handle it, to you on social media. Do what you want to do. Because the thing is, if you compromise anything you do, you're not going to make yourself happy, and you're not going to do service to the character or whatever it is you're creating. Make yourself happy first, and then the people who you're going to make happy will find you and follow you. Because the thing is, it doesn't matter what you do, someone is still going to have a problem with it. So just enjoy it and do what you want to do. Yeah.
Thank you. And there's a quote. It's good pleases almost everyone, right? And it's very true. Good pleases almost everyone, but you will have those haters regardless. In regards to should you write about it, you ever go up to a white guy, a white writer, and be like, hey, do you think you should write about any non-white people? Right? They wouldn't think twice. They'd be like, what's wrong with you? You know, and it's the exact same thing. So yes, you can write about anybody you want. You can write about any race you want. You can write any gender you want or any sexuality, whatever you want. But you do it respectfully, of course. You do the research as much as you can. That's what I did as best as I can. I'm not Dominican. I'm not from New York. I've been there. I do have a lot of Dominican friends, right? Like I do it the best that I can, in a very respectful way, of course. But at the end of the day, it's like it's a superhero, you know. Like no one knows what ethnicity Batman is, right? But nobody really cares. But they care about what ethnicity of Latina you are, what heritage you are, right? And it's just like all these extra double standards. Batman's Italian, by the way, if you guys don't know. But it's stuff like that. You know, it's like it doesn't matter because he's white, and they have, you know, like okay, white, that's fine. But Latina, like you literally have to, we have to sparsely be like we're Colombian, we're this, we're this. We literally have to break each other up because we don't get the representation.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, thank you so much, everybody, for being here and listening to everyone. I wanted to quickly, before we end the panel, where can we find you guys on social media?
Go, you talk too much. Go ahead.
At Jarrett Melendez on Twitter, at Jamarmel, Jamarmel on Instagram.
You can find me at Shadia Amin Art, ShadiaMinArt, at pretty much Instagram, Twitter, Hive, Ko-fi, which is my shop online. So yeah.
You can just find me here. I'll be downstairs. But I mean, you can find me at Tone Rodriguez 2000 on Instagram and Facebook. You know, again, I tell people all the time I'm easy to find. So by all means.
Mine is latinasuperheroes.com is my shop. Latina Superheroes is also my Instagram, and then I also have a booth. We all have booths downstairs as well.
And if you were nervous about saying something or coming up and talking in front of all these people, because this is hard, talking to people like this is hard. If you have a question for any of us, I mean, I'm speaking for them, but I mean, if you have something you want to ask us, by all means, just stop at the table.
Yeah, we are like at that little like
Yeah.
booths.
Yeah.
I'm at the P50, so Jared and I are the very back.
Yeah.
So come say hi to us.
Yeah.
We're easy to
say hi.
find.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Heck yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you.